What is going on, guys? Today we are going to be tier ranking every single Walking Dead half season. So I have ranked all the total seasons, all 10 of them, before season 11 started back about a year ago, and it was a full-on ranking video. My opinions have changed a little bit since then, so it's not going to be the exact same, but now we're doing it by half season instead of full season, which I think is a lot better just because 16 episodes a season is a lot. You know, even the more recent seasons have a lot more as well. So it's kind of hard to rate them against each other when there's just so much content within them. But doing it by half season, there's only like 8 episodes or so for most of these half seasons, so it's a lot easier to do it that way. Obviously, season 1, we're just doing it by season 1. We're not splitting that in half, but every other season is being split in half, except for, of course, season 10, which is split into 3 parts. And season 11 will eventually be split into 3 parts, but right now we only have 2 parts, 11A and 11B. This is just The Walking Dead. I'm not doing Fear or The World Beyond just because I don't have a strong enough opinion on those shows. I haven't even finished either of the shows yet. I haven't caught up with Fear and I haven't caught up with World Beyond, so I can't really say much about those if I haven't finished them. And also, I don't care about them as much. I don't hate them, but I just don't enjoy them as much as the main show, so it wouldn't make sense for me to really talk about them if I don't have much to say about them. But I have a lot to say about the main Walking Dead. I have a lot of opinions, a lot of unpopular ones, some that are more popular than others. Of course, as always, we rate these by the directing, the writing, the overall plot and storytelling, the acting, the cinematography, just how entertaining it is as a whole, the soundtrack, all of that is included in this list. Of course, it is subjective, it is still my opinion, it's never going to be an objective list that doesn't exist. It's always going to be my own opinion. And let's just get right to it. Let's not waste any time. Season 1. Okay, Season 1, we got 6 episodes in Season 1. I rated this pretty low on my total season ranking. And honestly, the only reason that is the case is because it just doesn't have that much excitement to it. But there really isn't many bad things about it either, which is why I think it's deserving of B tier, which is kind of in the middle. Because, like, yeah, it doesn't do anything that exciting. It really doesn't. There's nothing like this. And there's no high points here in this season. Like, my favorite Walking Dead moments, for example, none of them come from season 1, really. Like, there's a couple nice moments that I like, but none of them are, like, top tier moments. It's not a very just crazy season. That's pretty much the best way to put it, but it does everything very well. It sets up the characters nicely, it gets us introduced to this world nicely, and I gotta say it's pretty good for that. And the tone of this season is very different than any other season because it is the only season that is completely showrun by Frank Darabont, who's an incredible director. I just don't think his direction for The Walking Dead was going to go in a direction that I would have liked, so I'm actually not really mad that he left, although he is an incredible director, and for what he did do for this season, I thought he was incredible at what he was doing. But it feels very unique compared to any other season. It definitely feels like its own thing. The show completely changes after season 1 very drastically, but I still really like what it did. I obviously love, especially the first couple episodes, just getting introduced to everything. I think Guts is definitely the best episode of this season, and as we get into the later episodes, you just kind of get, you know, more immersed into this universe. I think the Rick, Lori, and Shane love triangle is the most interesting part of not only season 1 but also season 2, but it's got a lot of good stuff in season 1. The ending with CDC, I didn't love that whole ending thing, but I didn't think it was a bad idea either. Just like I said, not a lot of crazy exciting things, but also it does its job pretty well. I think most of the dialogue is pretty solid too. So 2A is what we're getting next. 2A is going to be from episode 1 to episode 7 within season 2, so it ends with the episode with Sophia coming out of the barn. That was the end of 2A. 2A is an interesting one because a lot of it is like just dialogue. Obviously, it's a very slow couple episodes. A lot of that has to do with the cut in the budget from season 1 to 2, so they had to stay on the farm for a little bit longer, so they had to kind of make the story kind of, I guess, drag a little bit more. But I'm not really against that just because there's a lot of characters they were handling here that we were kind of getting introduced to from, well, we got introduced into them with season 1, but they were really trying to do more with them in this season because they knew we were going to be with these characters for the next few seasons, so they wanted to kind of make them just, I don't know, more interesting characters, and they did a very good job with doing that in 2A. I think the storyline with Carl getting shot was definitely the best part of 2A, but as a whole, like I said, because it's a lot slower and because not a lot happens, especially within like the episode 4 to episode 6 time frame, it's gonna get C. I don't think it's D. C would be like, you know, like the average mid-seasons. D would be the ones that I think are below average, even bad. I would consider them maybe bad, but there's no F tier just because I don't think any season's that awful to the point where it would deserve F tier, but C is, like I said, just average. So yeah, it's fine. I don't really hate it. I think the dialogue is really solid. When it ends incredibly well with the Sophia coming out of the barn thing. But a lot of it is, more drama-esque, and I guess if you're into that, it might be better for you. You might enjoy it more. I like I said, I enjoy it. It's just not one I go back to all that often. I only like it for, like I said, the development of a lot of the characters, and a lot of the dialogue there is really good. Some of the best dialogue in the series comes from this half season. But 2B is actually going to go into A. I freaking love 2B, man. 2B is what makes season 2 go from being like an, meh season to, in my opinion, actually pretty good season. Shane makes the season, obviously, and he's amazing in 2A as well, especially with the Otis stuff. But into 2B, he's even better. He is phenomenal in these last few episodes. I think the whole entire story in these last few episodes is phenomenal. They obviously started off with a very different tone because a lot of characters are obviously, distraught over what happened with Sophia. And of course, Herschel is distraught with seeing, his family being killed, which they were already walkers, but seeing them die as walkers was, heartbreaking for him. So the tone is very different here. People are just on edge, and the group is like, in pretty, there's a lot of internal conflicts between the group, right? And then the stuff with Randall in episode 9 and how that goes on forward, I think really adds a lot of new elements to the group that we have to kind of learn. We kind of learn the morality of a lot of characters, what kind of morals these characters have. Obviously, Dale was very different than everyone else, and I love how they played around with that because his death was very meaningful because they did that. Because then going forward, the group kind of came together a little bit more because of his death, because they wanted to honor him, and they didn't want to be what Dale was, saying they were. They were a broken group. It's what he was saying, and they wanted to kind of, do better for that, do better for him. And then Shane dying was beautifully executed, and then the ending of the season I thought was also really solid. Like, this is just all around a solid season. I don't think it's S tier worthy, but I don't really have many things to complain about it. Like, I don't have a single thing where I'm like, this is not good. I think it just does everything it was supposed to do very, very well. It's just not S because the highs aren't as high as those S tier seasons. But Shane in this, couple episodes was amazing. Rick was amazing. I mean, he goes from saying we don't kill the living in season 1 to shooting 2 dudes in the bar, or in the bar, which was awesome. So a lot of good stuff here. Everything with Glenn and Maggie too in season 2 I really loved. But I think it was even better in 2B. So yeah, definitely deserving of that spot. And 3A is an interesting one because there's only like 1 or 2 episodes in the middle part of it that I'm not a big fan of. I don't like episode 5. It's actually one of my least favorite episodes of probably the whole series. But the first 4 episodes is phenomenal. Especially episode 4 is easily one of my favorite episodes of the whole series. But even the first couple of other ones, they're just really solid. The introduction of the prison is beautifully done. The way they get into the prison, they take out all the walkers and they head to the the tombs, and Herschel getting his leg bit and then have to chop that off. I mean, all that stuff is just really intense and really well done. Then the prisoners and how that tests the morality of our group again. And we see, the decisions that people will make because of this. I mean, Rick literally kills some of those prisoners after obviously they were trying to kill him. But it, again, tests the morality of our people. And at this point in the show, they were just like, screw it. Like, we'll do what we have to do to survive. And I really like that part of the season because of that. And then we get introduced to Woodbury and the governor. The governor is a brilliant character. Definitely, like Shane makes season 2. The governor makes season 3. And definitely for even 3A, even though it's before he really see him turn like to really evil. He's still pretty evil in those first couple episodes. We just don't see that evil side of him as much until he gets his eye, nicked out, and then Michonne kills his Walker daughter, and that is what kind of turns him over. And when we see that in the mid-season finale, it all kind of just culminates together. And the way they end this half season, I thought was really cool. How they set it up like Daryl and Merle are gonna, go at it. I thought that was really, really cool. So I really, really like 3A. I just think like a couple episodes in the middle there were just a little bit too slow. I think 5 and 6 maybe just were a little bit slower than they should have been. And I don't know, the stuff in Woodbury, especially in those couple episodes, I wasn't like crazy about. But I think it still deserves at least 3. Shit, is it gonna be A or B? It's going to be A or B, but I really don't know. This is a hard one. I'm doing this on the spot. I thought it'd be more fun to do on the spot, but some of these might actually be a little bit hard to do. I think B sounds good. Yeah, I don't know. Nah, I really like it, but it's like, shit, man, it's hard. It really is hard. I think it's going to be A. Yeah, I think it's going to be A. I really, really like what they did with this half season. 3B gets intense, man. We get some really cool stuff with the governor again here. And obviously the war breaking out between the prison and Woodbury. The only thing I think that I think I said I think like 20 times. The only thing about this half season that I don't really like was the fact that they kept building up this battle, this tension between Woodbury and the prison. They were building it up for the entire... We got like one little battle, but they were building up like this war for so long, and for it just to not happen, I think was a little bit anticlimactic. Obviously, they give us a fantastic battle in season 4, but they were building it up, and we didn't really get that climax. You know what I mean? So I think that kind of was almost blue-balling us a little bit, and I think it really did hurt this half season. But that does not mean there wasn't some incredible stuff there, because there was. I think the one battle they did do in episode 10 was fantastic. Everything with Rick going crazy. I mean, he was still going crazy in 3A, but he was even crazier in 3B. It felt like he was like hallucinating and stuff. And the way that ends with them bringing in the Woodbury people and, you know, letting them stay with them, I thought that was really well done. Everything with Merle in this half season was really good. The episode where they go see Morgan was incredible. A lot of good stuff here, but I just think it falls a little bit short of 3A, just because they didn't actually build. They didn't give us a good payoff for what this season felt like it was building up. You know what I mean? Thankfully, they saved it in 4A, but I think that was the biggest fault of 3B. It's got probably the coolest poster, though. I freaking love this poster. But it just felt like it was a little anticlimactic because of that. I like the finale, I do. It's just, you should have given us somewhat of a battle, somewhat of a war, at least for like an episode or two, just to let it feel like an actual war. And then you could still end it the same way, where they still go and, you know, bring in the other people from Woodbury. I guess it wouldn't work as well because they would have killed some Woodbury people in that process, but they would have to rework a lot of the season, maybe get more Woodbury soldiers that aren't good people, so when our people kill them, it's not as big of a deal. I don't know, but I just think that's the biggest issue with 3B, in my opinion. Now, 4A is an interesting one. I'm going to say S. I'm going to say it. This one's one that's, yes, Too Far Gone is a big reason why it's going in S. Huge reason. Like, that episode alone, I don't know if that episode alone is enough to put it in S, but that episode does help it substantially. Like, if we did not have Too Far Gone and it was like, I don't know, just some random other episode instead, it would probably be like a B or something, or I don't know, probably somewhere like that. But Too Far Gone throws it up a lot. It really does. But even without Too Far Gone, the first 5 episodes of season 4, the sickness arc, is one of my favorite arcs in the entire show. It's a non-comic arc, you know, it's not in the comics, but I thought it was so awesome. Because first of all, it's a really, you know, realistic concept, some sort of a sickness coming into a large community of people. That makes sense. That would probably happen, right? And so seeing that unfold and seeing the group struggle with it while also having to deal with the fence continuously getting, you know, falling down because walkers are building up towards it, and some other outside threats and some inside threats as well, like Tyrese dealing with the fact that Carol, or he didn't know that at the time, but that someone burnt Karen and David alive, and then dealing with all that. A lot of good stuff in this. And then episode 5, one of my favorite episodes in the show, does some incredible stuff with Herschel. This is definitely the best couple episodes for Herschel that we've ever seen. And, you know, also with Rick and Carl mowing down the walkers in episode 5. A lot of great, solid moments. And even the 2 governor episodes, although sometimes I say they're a little unnecessary to have those 2 episodes, looking back on them, I actually kind of enjoyed them. Definitely 7 more than 6, but I love the character of the governor, so I think these episodes are awesome for his character, because it kind of puts this in a whole new direction where it's kind of like faking us out to make us think the governor is going to turn, you know, good. But he realizes, and I think the governor realized that too. I think the governor he's just like the audience in these episodes, where we want him. I don't know if we want him to turn, but we think he's going to turn good. The governor thinks he's going to turn good too. He feels it. He thinks he's going to turn good. He wants to. You can see it. But the past just comes back to him, especially when, you know, he gets to episode 7 and Martinez is there and stuff, and the past just starts coming back, and he realizes he can't. There's no way he can change. He is this terrible person who just wants power. That's just how it has to be. And it kind of embraces that in episode 8, which is my favorite thing about Too Far Gone, is the way it, kind of concludes that character of the governor, where Rick is giving this speech about, that you can change, that you can come back, because that's what Herschel was teaching Rick, because Rick changed substantially from season 3 to 4. That's what Herschel's been teaching Rick. And so Rick tries to teach that to the governor here, but the governor is too far gone. And so he just says liar. And that one word that he says, liar, so powerful, because he's literally telling Rick, no, you're wrong. I can't change. I'm too far gone. I'm killing Herschel. And he does it. And then the war breaks out, and we have this awesome battle. And then it ends with, governor dying. Our people thinking Judith's dead, but not actually being dead. Like, the best episode in the series, in my opinion, Too Far Gone. I absolutely love that episode. But it's just the story that builds up to that episode is just so profound, and everything that happens building up. I love that shit. That's what makes 4A an S tier for me. It's incredible. 4B. 4B is interesting. This is one of the most interesting half seasons, because I feel like a lot of people don't like it, but a lot of people also do like it. It really depends. But I'm gonna say B. I think they did make a mistake of a couple of the episodes definitely being a little bit slow, a little too slow. The first couple episodes, like 9, 10, and 11, I thought were fine, just the way they were. 12 and 13 could have definitely been one episode. I don't think they needed to have a whole separate episode of Beth and Daryl just out and about. I liked that episode for what it did at the very end of the episode, the last 10 minutes of it, but the rest of that was unnecessary. And then the stuff in episode 13, a lot of it was just, I don't know, Maggie, Sasha, and Bob going back and forth about a bunch of stuff. We didn't need that whole episode either. I think they could have definitely cut that into one. But then other than that, I don't know. There's just not a lot of crazy, exciting things that happen. It makes sense why they are building up these characters. They are also letting the characters breathe a little bit, because we just had a crazy episode with episode 8. So they do let the characters breathe a little bit in these episodes, just kind of let them kind of just go out on their own, and just kind of see them grieving over what happened and coming together, and eventually they lead together. And it does give us really good stuff at the end of this half season. What makes this half season not C tier, in my opinion, would be episode 14 with the Grove, and what happens at the very end of the episode with Carol having to kill Lizzie after Lizzie kills Mika. One of the best little moments in the entire show, in my opinion, one of the most impactful moments, especially for Carol's character. And then episode 16, I think, also has one of the best moments in the show. I think season 4 in general has a lot of the best moments, when Rick bites out Joe's throat after Joe's group was attacking his people. And I love that moment so much, because it really defines Rick's character in this point in this show, because one of the things that has been kind of looming over Rick for this entire couple seasons was the fact that Shane kept saying, I don't think you can keep Lori and Carl safe. That was a thing that probably stuck in his head for a long time, and especially after Lori actually died, that hit him. And so he does everything he can possibly do to keep Carl alive. And so in this moment, I think he was thinking that. I think he was thinking, I gotta do whatever I gotta do to keep my boy alive. And that's what makes him bite out Joe's throat. And I thought that was just such an impactful moment. And then he takes a knife and starts stabbing that one dude. And it's such it's the loss of humanity in these characters that is just so well executed in this episode. And then we build up to Terminus, and then we get the iconic, you're screwing in the what they aired with. They did you're screwing with the wrong people, but I kind of say that you're fucking with the wrong people is the canon one, just because it just sounds so much cooler. So I'm gonna pretend that's the canon version of it. But man, I love that episode. That's what definitely keeps this from being lower. But like I said, some of those episodes before, I don't know, a little bit slow and not as exciting as it could get later on. Nothing like poorly written, really. It's just a little slow. 5A. So 5A hurts a lot. This is one that really hurts, because I fucking love the first 3 episodes. It's some of the best consecutive episodes in the entire Walking Dead. The Hunters, Terminus, Cannibal arc is so good. I mean, episode 1 is phenomenal. Episode 2 is still also really good. An introduction of Father Gabriel, the way it ends with Bob getting his leg chopped off and eaten, and episode 3 with our group just fully losing their humanity and just slaughtering these people in the church. All stuff that is just incredible. But episode 4 and pretty much everything after that, other than I like episode 5 a lot. I really did not care for the hospital arc. I thought it was the most uninteresting part of the entire Walking Dead franchise from every single, well, the main show, not Fear and World Beyond, but from the main show. This is the most boring arc. I just did not care for Dawn. I did not care for the hospital arc, the people there. I liked Noah, but I didn't need to see him introduced here. We could have introduced him later. Beth, they could have found another way to kill her off if they really wanted to kill her off. I just did not see the point of this story. I didn't see the point of its impact on the show. I didn't see the point of going there. It was nice to see Atlanta again, I guess, but none of this felt necessary, and I didn't really like it. So it holds back 5A a ton, unfortunately, a ton. There's a lot of good stuff about it, though. But there's enough about it that I don't like, too. It sucks because I love those first 3 episodes so much, but I really didn't like everything after that, really. I mean, other than, like I said, a couple things here and there. There's a couple moments in there, too, that I really like. I think Beth's death wasn't terrible. It just, I don't know, didn't have the impact I feel like it should have. I thought it was really shocking and a really shocking, twist of a moment, but I don't know, it wasn't my cup of tea, I guess. 5B, on the other hand, is easily S tier as well. I mean, also an S tier poster. Look at that poster. That's a great poster. 5B, the introduction of Alexandria. Well, first of all, it starts with episode 9 with Tyrese's death. I wasn't a big fan of that. Didn't really like how they killed him off, to be honest. It was an artsy and well-edited episode, but I just didn't like the way they killed him off. But episode 10 onward, I thought was all solid. Every episode from there on out was really good. Not a single bad episode this season, really, this mid-season. I love how they introduce Alexandria. I love how they introduce Aaron. I love how we, get our community or get our people, accumulated into Alexandria, and how it all builds up to the finale with Rick having to kill Pete, especially with that whole storyline. I thought that was one of the more interesting storylines, with Jesse having to deal with Pete and then Rick wanting to kind of help her, and how that all turns out is one of the more interesting parts of this season for sure. And obviously you have stuff with Glenn and Nicholas and that conflict between the two of them, and how that unfolds with Noah dying, which I thought was one of the most gruesome deaths in the show. It was really well done. And just seeing all the characters just getting accumulated to the society, I just thought it was really well done. Like, they really did a good job of introducing Alexandria. I have no complaints, really. I thought it was really solid stuff. 6A, it's gonna get an A tier. The only thing holding 6A back would probably be episodes like 5 and 6 and 7, maybe. No, maybe not 7. I don't know, 5, 6, and 7. And also, I still like 5 and 7. I think 6 is the only episode I legitimately didn't like that much. 5 and 7 were like kind of just okay, I guess. But everything else there was really good. Really, really good. So that holds it up for sure. And the one other thing I'm not crazy about, I'm still not like against it, I'm iffy on it to this day, is the Glenn fake out death. I'm still a little like, I feel like there was a better way to do that, but I don't hate it. I don't absolutely hate it. I'm just like, well, I don't know if that was the best thing you could have done for that whole thing. I don't know. I'm not sure what the exact point of it was as well. Maybe it was to just kind of test the community's patience, test the community's reaction to Glenn dying, I guess, so they can actually do it later. But I wasn't crazy about it. That's all I'm going to say. But the first 3 episodes were all bangers, all 3 of them, I would say. Obviously, except for, Glenn fake out, like I said. But that didn't ruin episode 3. Episode 3 was still phenomenal. Otherwise, episode 4 I thought was really good, too. It was one of the best written episodes in the whole franchise, for sure. It's not really like, the most entertaining episode, definitely not the most rewatchable, but has a lot of good stuff for Morgan's character in there. And then episode 8 was actually, in my opinion, a really good finale, and mid-season finale. I know a lot of people don't like it because it doesn't do what No Way Out was going to do, because we all thought all the No Way Out stuff from the comics was going to happen in the episode. So honestly, when I first saw that episode, I did think it was a little disappointing because of that, but looking back on it, whatever. It's still a really good episode regardless. But the whole Herd arc in general is one of my favorite arcs from the comics. So seeing it on screen, I thought was just really fun. And it brings the Walkers, it makes the Walkers a big threat again, I think. And that's what I really like about it, because they weren't much of a threat in season 5 even. I guess they were before that, but they stopped being a threat, and I think it's a good way for the show to make them a threat again, and they keep doing that again in the series later on, of course, especially with the Whisperers, but I think this was a good job of making them a threat because this is definitely the biggest herd we've ever seen in the show at this point. So kind of messing around with that was really cool. The wolves were a cool little threat too. They were kind of a quick thing, but they allowed us to have that badass episode with Carol in episode 2, just absolutely slaughtering the wolves. I thought was incredible. And I like Morgan in this season too. I like how they bring him back. Episode 5, like I said, was just okay, but I really like a lot of the stuff they do with Deanna here, even Rick and Jesse, and how they build up their relationship. And Maggie being pregnant was a big reveal too. Yeah, they introduced the Saviors in episode 6 too, but in a very low-key way. They don't really go hardcore with it until we get to later episodes in 6B. But yeah, it's just overall, I think, a pretty damn good half season. It's just not good enough for S tier though. So season 6B, easy S. Don't even have to think about that one. That is an easy S. I think this might be the best half season, and it's one of the best for sure. It's gotta be. Starts off incredible with No Way Out, one of the best episodes in the series. Obviously, it completely finishes up that herd storyline from 6A, and it does it beautifully. It's one of the best directed episodes. So many awesome, just Walking Dead defining moments, especially the group coming together at the end and fighting all the walkers with that amazing montage at the end. Obviously, you know, Carl loses his eye. The episode's beginning even was incredible with Daryl blowing up the Saviors with the RPG. Just a lot of great stuff. And then it goes into the next episode, which is a lot more fun and happy, where we meet Jesus, and then eventually we meet the Hilltop, and we get a whole new community introduced. And the world just gets so much bigger here. The slogan for this little mid-season was A Larger World, which was also one of the names of one of the comic volumes at this point. And that's exactly what was happening here. We get to see the larger world. We got to see the Hilltop, and then we get introduced to the Saviors. Then episode 12 was a banger when they go into the outpost itself and actually take out the Saviors within it. I thought that was really awesome. The way that whole episode was executed, and it gets them involved in this whole Savior battle in a way that makes sense. It's not like force. It's kind of understandable. Episode 13 was just good development with Carol and Maggie. Didn't think it was the best episode, but it was fine. 14, I didn't love it in the beginning, but once you got to Denise's death, I thought that stuff was just one of the most shocking moments in the entire series. So I kind of liked it just because of that. It's a little fucked up because, you know, poor Denise, but it was really, in my opinion, well executed. And then I think 15 had some pretty good moments, and then 16 I think is also one of the best episodes in the entire franchise. Now I know the cliffhanger, I don't like it either. I have accepted it because, you know, it's been years, and I do really like how the next episode turned out regardless, but I don't like the fact that they ended the season that way. But that doesn't take away the fact that the rest of the episode was incredible. I think a lot of people let that affect their thoughts on the episode itself, because the episode itself is phenomenal, and there's really no doubting that. It's one of the best episodes in the series, and Negan's introduction, his speech, amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. 6B is incredible. 7A. 7A is a tough one. I'm actually going to put it in B. This one is interesting because, yeah, it's slow, but a lot of it's really great. Everything with Negan is fantastic. That's obviously probably the highlight of every season since he was introduced, to be honest. But he was really good in season 7A, especially from episode 1, obviously, which right from the get-go, episode 1 is one of the best episodes in the series. One of the most gruesome. Well, actually, no, it is the most gruesome. It's definitely the most heartbreaking. Glenn and Abraham's death and everything else with it as well. This is definitely one of the best episodes of television history, I would go as far as to say, in terms of how it's directed. The way this episode is able to just punch you in your gut over and over again is just incredible. And then obviously we get the introduction of Kingdom the next episode. We get the introduction of the rest of the Saviors in the Sanctuary. We get the introduction of Oceanside as well. Like, there's so much that they give us in 7A. It is a pretty exciting mid-season because of that, because we're getting so much new stuff. And obviously if you don't care about the new stuff, you're not going to like it, which is why I think a lot of people didn't like this. I thought it was fine. Like I said, it was definitely a lot slower. I didn't like episode 3 and 5. I think those are the only ones I really didn't like, but everything else I thought was really, really solid, especially episodes 7 and 8 leading towards the end of this mid-season, where you had a lot of things happening. Again, it was very depressing with our characters being kind of at a down point, but I think we needed that for the show. They've been, you know, at the high points way too much. I wanted to see them at their lowest point. I wanted to see them completely lose the power that they've had for a certain amount of time. So when they build it back up for the war, it's more impactful. I think 7A did that really, really well. And then obviously ended it with a really cool episode with Spencer getting his gut opened up, and we all know that was one of the best moments in the entire show. So that was great. Negan definitely made that half season. 7B, on the other hand, I think was definitely not as good. I still like it. It's just average though. It's not going in D. Not going in D. D reserved for a season we'll get to later. But this 7B, I don't know, man. It's a weird one. I feel like this one is definitely the one that didn't need to be the length it was more than any other season. This could have been probably cut into like 4 or 5 episodes, and I think it would have worked. 7A, you're introducing a lot of stuff, so it made sense why it had to be that long, but I don't know, this one just didn't feel that way. I liked the first 2 episodes. I thought those were fine. I actually liked the scavengers, the trash people. I actually were okay with those people. I didn't think they were a terrible group. Yeah, they were a little weird, but I don't know, weird people exist, so I wasn't really against it. And I liked the whole Winslow Walker thing they did, so I thought that was fine. Episode 11, I think, is one of the worst episodes in the whole series. It's literally just Eugene in the sanctuary for a whole episode. I just don't like it. Episode 12, it felt like a weird episode. I don't know, it wasn't a... If you really like Rick and Michonne together, which I do, you might like it more than I do, but I would like to have seen them doing something else than just, I don't know, they're on like a little like romantic getaway almost. I don't know, it was kind of fun, but you could have summed it up in like 20 minutes or 10 minutes. Episode 13, again, you could have summed that up with just Morgan's going crazy again. That's all that episode did. So again, doesn't really do much for me. Episode 14, I also didn't really like too much. So just not a lot of good episodes in this season. That's the problem. But what puts it at C instead of D is honestly the finale. Episode 16 of season 7 is phenomenal. I love this episode. It is one of the best battles in the show. This I call it the Battle of Alexandria. I guess you can call it the one that started the all-out war in general. It was so cool. I mean, seeing them attacking. I didn't like how Sasha died. I didn't like that death exactly, but I like how, Carl just pulled out the Glock at one point, started popping dudes, and then the whole war broke out. I like how the trash people betrayed them. I thought that was a cool little double cross there. I like how Shiva came in, and the Hilltoppers came in, and Kingdomers, and they all came in, and there was this just big battle going on. I thought it was really cool. It definitely helps it a little bit. And like I said, there were some cool things they did with some of the characters, earlier on, especially with them still trying to deal with the idea of going to war with the Saviors. It was fine. I just felt like a lot of it was a little too slow for my liking. 8A, season 8A. Season 8 as a whole is one of the, I would say, the most hated Walking Dead season. I think it's the most underrated Walking Dead season. I really don't hate it like people do. But 8A, I'm only going to give to, I'm going to say the B tier. It's not going to go higher than that because they really messed up with a couple characters here, especially Daryl and Jesus. I really don't like Daryl and Jesus in this season. I think they're better in 8B, but 8A, I really did not like them. They didn't make much sense to what their characters should be. Daryl was being really reckless. Yes, Daryl has been reckless before, but why would he be reckless after being reckless, causing Glenn's death? That caused Glenn's death with him being reckless. Why was he still reckless? I thought he learned from that. I thought he changed from that, but they didn't make him change. They just made him continue to be reckless into season 8. Don't get that. They should have changed his character in a way that was more impactful, but it kind of lost. It lost the impact that Glenn's death had on Daryl because he just forgot about Glenn almost. He's like, oh, I'll still be reckless as much as I can. I'll get more people killed, and he kind of does get more people killed. Whatever. Jesus was being weirdly inconsistent with whether or not he wanted to kill Saviors or not. At one point, he was shooting Saviors in the back of the head. Other points, he was trying his best to keep them alive. So much so that he would fight Morgan over it. Like, dude, what the hell are you doing? That bothered me. And some of the action wasn't the best in terms of how it was directed. Some of it was a little odd. Like, some characters clearly in positions where they should be getting hit. But obviously, plot armor and stuff was probably at its strongest point in some of these episodes. But as a whole, some of the battles were also incredible. Episode 2 in particular, I thought had one of the best battles in the Walking Dead history. And it was a full-on battle. I mean, the whole episode was a war episode. You had, the battle when at the one outpost that the one group attacked with like Aaron and them, and then obviously Eric gets shot there. That was a really well-directed battle. Obviously, Rick and Daryl were going into that one place, and Rick fights that one dude who was Gracie's father and has to kill him. I thought that was really well executed. You have some stuff with Ezekiel and them on the road, and then you have also, like I said, Jesus, Terra, and them taking out the outpost from season 6. There's a lot of awesome action in this episode, so that was great. And then even a couple other episodes in there, like episode 3, the first episode even, they had some nice action. This was a good war season. A lot of people always tell me, they're like, All Out War, there was no war. What do you mean there was no war? The first 4 episodes were all kind of war episodes. So that's a pretty big war right there, I would say. I just don't love episodes like 5 to 7, though. That's like the only period in this half season I really didn't like that much. That's mainly where the Daryl problems came into play. And maybe they could have, again, cut it a little bit shorter. I didn't think it had to be that long. Episode 8, I like a lot more. I think it was pretty solid. A couple of issues I had with it here and there, but still, mostly, I think it's a fine half season. I think people gave it way too much shit. 8B is actually going to go in S. That is what makes season 8 a season that I actually think is incredibly underrated, is 8B. 8B is way better than 8A, that's for sure. First of all, starts off with Carl's death, which I know a lot of people don't like, right? Even if you don't like Carl's death, I don't get how you can make that a reason to hate the whole season, though. I never understood that. People like, that's enough for them to hate the whole season. I think it's a bit much. I was personally okay with his death. I didn't love the idea of it, but I kind of accepted it, and it kind of ended up being okay, in my opinion, in the end. But the way they handled it here, I thought was brilliant, right? They make him this essentially, peaceful character. I know people feel like it's out of nowhere, but I think it makes a lot more sense than I think people give it credit for. He did change because he saw the innocent people in the sanctuary after he went to the sanctuary. He wanted to kill Negan at the sanctuary, but then he saw the innocent people there. I think it started to make him realize that, okay, we can't have a war. If we have a war, there's going to be people dying on both sides, innocent people. I can't have that. So he's trying to tell Rick here, you got to make peace with Negan. You just got to make peace. That's the only way this war is going to stop. You can't stop it by just killing all his people, because eventually you'll have to kill all of his people, including the innocent people. And you can't kill the innocent people because they're innocent people. And Carl knows that. He's like, you can't imprison them all, so just make peace. Just try to make peace. And maybe he can change. Try it. And I really like how they fit that into his character. And people say that could have worked with another character that could have worked with Morgan. I don't think it would have been as impactful. But it being Carl, even Carl dying, Rick still didn't change right away. It took a little bit of time for him to kind of process that and then change over it, which I really like that story with Rick in this season. This is one of my favorite seasons for Rick, and the journey he goes on this season. He's really trying to overcome his just wrath, and then eventually he gives Negan mercy in the end. It's beautiful how it all has like a crescendo there. I really like that. And it does some good stuff with Negan here too. I like how Negan is actually kind of changing a little bit here. He does seem like he doesn't want to have this war, but it's almost like he feels like it's too far gone. So you got to keep going, right? It's not like the governor where he feels like he's too far gone. It's more like he feels like this war is too far gone. It's like, how the hell could we possibly make peace after all this? There's just no way. He doesn't believe it. But Rick obviously eventually showed him that. He showed him mercy. He gave him a prison cell, and now Negan's still around to this day. Negan, if he meets Rick again, he better kiss his goddamn feet, because Rick was right. Rick was right. And I really liked how that all worked out, and the fact that, Negan actually ended up getting a redemption arc later on makes this season all the more impactful. It has a lot of great moments, right? The Rick versus Negan in episode 12 I thought was fantastic. The hilltop battle was mostly good. I think there was a couple iffy things about it, how it was shot, but most of it was good. Rick and Morgan were great together in this season. Eugene, I didn't like what they did with his character here in this season at all, but I do like how he did eventually trick the Saviors with the weapons at the end and save the day. I like that. It's all around a pretty damn good half season. 9A. 9A is going to get an A tier. I really like 9A. The first five episodes is really good as well, but I almost like the 3 episodes after episode 5 even more. I mean, episode 5 is definitely the best episode there, but as a whole, like if you look at the scenery and stuff of these episodes, I almost like, because the time jump was so interesting, right? It was such a sudden thing after Rick's exit. It was so sudden, but it was so different. It was so fresh. I really liked how fresh it felt. It felt so unique, and I really liked how that was executed. But obviously the stuff before that was really cool. They had this whole storyline with, trying to make, the society work with all the different communities. You had, Kingdom, Hilltop, Alexandria, and the Sanctuary and Oceanside, all these communities. And it was kind of hard. They kind of have to make things work with each other. And saviors still were a little bit of against Alexandria in some ways and the other communities because of what happened. And I like how we had Oceanside playing with this storyline of them trying to kill some of the saviors who wronged them in any way. They killed some people who ended up killing some of their people. I love that story so much. Rick's trying to stop it. You can see Rick has changed. He's really trying to stop it, but he doesn't really succeed, and it ends up going poorly. And eventually we see him sacrifice himself for everyone else because that's how much he cares about his people. And I really love that episode with all the flashbacks with Herschel and Shane and stuff. Really great stuff. And then obviously it leads into the Anub, like the really far time jump, the real A New Beginning storyline. And wow, the time jump was awesome. Seeing Judith, seeing RJ, seeing Michonne, very different. Seeing the Whispers being introduced, seeing even characters like Eugene being very different. So awesome, so incredible. I love 9A. It's really good. But 9B is even better. 9B is even better. I love season 9. I really do. You guys probably know that. It's one of my favorite seasons. 9B I thought was even better, especially with how the Whispers were introduced to us. They were introduced kind of in 9A, but they were kind of further introduced into 9B. Obviously, you had stuff like the awesome ending of episode 8 in the prior season with Jesus dying. But the way that kind of builds up in episode 9 and onward is really cool. Alpha's introduction is also really cool. I like Lydia's character and how she's brought in here. I like Henry's character and how he's utilized in this season as well. And you get a lot of stuff with Daryl, and then there's of course the new characters like Connie and stuff, and they're really well brought into this storyline as well. And it all leads to, of course, the Pikes. That's what everything here leads to. Obviously, there's a lot of conflict before that, like Daryl versus Beta, which is one of the best scenes in The Walking Dead's history. And leading to the Pikes is one of the best moments, one of the most heartbreaking moments. I still don't like the Pike choices that much, though. I kind of wish there were different choices. I don't think they should have killed off Tara like that because they didn't really give her death much meaning in that way. At least the other characters like Enid and Henry had more of a purpose, but I feel like Tara's was very random and didn't really have much of a purpose. But still was a well-executed scene in terms of how it was directed, and the music was brilliant. And I really like this stuff. And then, of course, you end the season with a finale that's definitely one of the weaker finales, but it's cool because it's snowing, so it gets some brownie points there just for snowing. It's a really fun, really eventful half season. Obviously, you have the Michonne episode 2, episode 14, where she has a little backstory when it sees what really changed her, the way that she had to kill kids. That was brutal as hell, and I really enjoy it. 10A. 10A. This is actually a tough one. I'm gonna say C. So the problem I have with 10A, it's not what I thought of when I thought of the Whisper War, right? Because we were building up to that, right? We were definitely building up to a Whisper War from 9B, from the start of the mid-season finale of 9 to now. So I was expecting to start to get into that stuff, but they kind of make it like a Cold War thing, which was kind of cool for a little bit, where it was like, there was conflict there, and they kind of both understood there was definitely conflict there, and Alpha just wanted to keep her territory to herself, but then obviously Carol didn't want that, and other things started arising because obviously Negan ended up getting involved, and that caused a lot of problems. Everything with Negan here was fantastic. That is what holds us up for sure, is everything with Negan. I loved everything with Negan here. But looking back on it, because they never actually gave us a Negan versus Beta fight, which, yes, that is important enough to me, to the point where all the stuff with Negan and Beta in 10A matters so much less to me because they didn't pay it off. If they paid it off with a good Negan versus Beta fight in 10B, I would have really liked, looking back on it, the stuff between Negan and Beta in 10A, because it was building up towards that, and we never got it. So honestly, everything with Negan and Beta in 10A, I don't care about anymore. So that's a problem, but everything else with Negan, obviously his redemption arc kind of coming full circle, and not coming full circle, but you know what I mean, like moving on forward. And Lydia here was great as well. I like how they kind of worked her into the Negan storyline, the Negan redemption stuff. But again, it kind of stops there. I didn't really care for what they were doing with Alpha here. I didn't care for the Gamma character that they introduced. I just didn't really care for her that much. I didn't think her story was that interesting. They had a whole backstory episode with Alpha, which I thought was kind of a waste of time. And Carol was just being incredibly reckless here. And yeah, I know it makes sense why she would be, but it felt like repetitive recklessness. It was consistent recklessness for honestly the whole season, even into 10B, and it was just like, come on, just chill with this stuff. It was too much. It was too much for me. I don't know. I felt like it was just making her character kind of annoying. I don't know. So yeah, I wasn't crazy about it. Didn't really get into the Whisper War at all, really. There was no war in 10A, which I was expecting it to at least have some of that, but there was not. It was really nothing. I don't know. It was just not a very interesting season. I like the Dante twist, but I don't think it was the coolest thing ever. I thought it was just, it was surprising, which is what made it interesting, but that's all it really was. Just a cool little twist to kill off a character that I didn't really think needed to be killed off in that moment. I didn't feel like his death had that much impact, so I don't know. I don't like 10A that much. I don't like 10A that much, but 10B was a lot better. For sure, 10B was definitely better, but still only B. It's only B. I don't like Season 10 as much as I think a lot of people do. I don't know exactly what it was. It felt lower than I feel like I wanted it to be. It was definitely disappointing because, again, Whisper War is amazing in the comics. It's definitely my best part of the comics for sure. But it's one of the only times where I felt like the show was worse than the comics. Because even the Whisper War in Season 10B, which actually we got a little bit of a war there, but it was kind of tame. It was one little battle at the hilltop. And that was kind of it. I mean, you got this episode 16 thing where they sent the herd to the hospital. But like, what? Especially as an avid comic reader, right? Like, All Out War, you could argue as much as you want that you like the comic All Out War better, but the show at least adapted most of what it did. Like, most of the battles were adapted in some way. Actually, no, all of them were, really. They actually added more battles. They added more stuff to it. But it was all adapted. But the Whisper War in the comics had so much more that was never adapted into the show. Negan vs. Beta, not adapted. That little crap they gave us was garbage. A little 2 seconds, no, it was garbage. The field battle, where all the, our survivors put on Whisperer masks and went through the big walker field. They did that in the hospital for like 2 minutes, but it wasn't like the field battle where you had all our people also mowing down the walkers, and while Whisperers were in them with guns. Obviously at this point in the show they didn't really have guns, so they have to work in the gun production part of the comics, and that would maybe be a little bit complicated, but they honestly didn't even have to do that. They could have just found a way for them to have a situation in a big field where they would be taking out walkers one by one, and we'd have this big battle where Whisperers would be slowly coming from the herd trying to take our people out. And that's obviously where Negan vs. Beta happened in the comics. That could have happened there too as well, but they cut that completely by just having our crew go through that herd by the hospital and then end up on the highway later on, or like a different road, and then they just fight a couple walkers and Whisperers there, and that's kind of it. Like, it was just so bland. And then they walked the herd off the cliff, which was a cool sequence, but it was a lot less exciting than the comics. They also didn't do a certain doom, right? A certain doom is which was one of my favorite parts in the comics for sure. When the herd goes through, maybe they thought this was going to be too much like No Way Out, but that's kind of the point. When the herd goes through Alexandria while they're all in it, and they have to all go hide into the houses, right? And they're all stuck in the houses, and it's like clustered. It's even worse than No Way Out. And they did that little sequence in episode 15 in season 10, but they were already out of Alexandria at that point. How much cooler would it have been if they were all still in Alexandria? You had a situation where everyone was in their houses, and little by little Whisperers would sneak through houses and try to take our people out. Like, that would have been just insane, but they didn't do it. They just forgot about that awesome part of the comics. There's a lot of iconic deaths that they didn't even remix, which they don't have to, but I mean, come on. The one with Gabriel having his, gut sliced open, or it was his gut, right? Yeah, like he fell off the ladder and the thing. It would have been cool to have just any character get that, even if it's a side character, like one we don't really know. I think it would have been cool to at least get that imagery. But there is some good stuff here. I think as a whole, episode 11 and 12 are good. Like, they're really solid episodes, especially 11. I think 11 is definitely the best in this mid-season. And yeah, I think, again, everything with Negan's great. Seeing him finally turn to the good side, I guess, was fine. But other than that, I don't know. There wasn't that much that I really can say about this half season that I absolutely loved. It was just, like I said, those couple moments in those episodes that I really enjoyed. And the start of this season I hated. I hated episode 9, the one in the cave. You couldn't even see it. It was too dark. I don't know. Definitely unpopular opinion. And the Michonne episode was interesting. I didn't think it was the greatest thing ever, but it was interesting. It was cool, I guess. 10C is easily going in D. I mean, Come on. These episodes were solely made for the purpose of AMC getting some money during the pandemic, because they didn't have any other episodes they can possibly make during the pandemic, because they were on a shorter budget because of the pandemic. It makes sense, but like, it's such a waste of time. Like, honestly, it makes it hard to get through this season, because there's really no point of watching a lot of the episodes in 10C. Like, I liked episode 19, but that episode's completely pointless for the most part, except for seeing Gabriel killing the one dude. I feel like most of it did not matter to the characters on a substantial level. Episode 21 was pointless completely. Episode 20, you could have summed it up as Princess is a little schizophrenic, and that's it. That's all you have to sum it up as. Maybe have the one moment where she beats up the one Commonwealth soldier. That's all you needed. Like, you could have that 5 minutes, it would have been fine. The episode with Leah was important, I guess, but again, that could have been definitely split into another episode, I'm sure. And then episode 22 was the best episode, definitely there. It was probably the best episode of that season. It's one of my favorite episodes ever, with Here's Negan. I think that's an incredible episode, but that's the only one, really. That's the only one of that entire 6 episodes that I think actually deserves any credit, because it does. I mean, but that's mainly because of how incredible Jeffrey Dean Morgan was in that episode, and of course his wife as well. Like, they just did an incredible job of that episode, and that was beautifully written, and it actually made you understand Negan's character more. So that's why it's good, and that's the only reason this is not getting F. I had to make an F tier because Negan's episode is fire. But that's it. 11A. Just like 10A, I'm putting it in C. I just did not like 11A that much. It's hard to really pinpoint what it was, but I think a big part of it for me, it's the final season, and I feel like everything was just dragged out in a way that I just don't think was necessary. Like, I think sometimes dragging storylines out is good when you're trying to really develop the characters and such, but we're at the final season here. You don't have to do that. Just get to it. And I did not like the Reapers. I liked Leah. I thought she was cool, but the Reapers, I didn't find them that interesting. I just didn't. It was just another religious group. Pope was a boring villain, in my opinion. He was just, we got a wrath. It's like, shut the fuck up, dude. His whole ideology is not interesting. There's not a single part of it that I find to be interesting to his character. So I didn't really like it. Commonwealth felt small here. It's a little bit better now, but it felt small in this couple episodes, and it was introduced weirdly because it was only introduced to some of our characters. What they did with it in 10B, 11B, I really liked, so it's okay. But here in 11A, I didn't like that much. Okay, everything at Alexandria felt just like a waste of time. I don't know, like not much was happening there. You had Connie with that really cool horror episode, but looking back on it, the fuck was the point of that? That was it was well directed, but what was the point? And looking back on it, what is that group? Like, we don't have to explain everything, but that's one of those things where it's like, I kind of want to know, why were they so crazy? And why were they all crazy together like that? Like, that's such a weird thing where you have people, like, I get, you have like Terminus, it's a bunch of people who are cannibals, okay. You have Saviors, a bunch of people who are mostly dicks, okay. Whispers, a bunch of people who are, again, really weird, but they're just wearing masks, whatever, okay, they're kind of, primal, sure. But this is like a whole nother thing. This is like people literally walking around like animals. Like, how do you possibly find that many people that are that screwed up together to kind of form a group like that? It made no sense, and they made a whole episode out of it, and they never explained it. I don't know, I just didn't see the point of that. And they made a couple choices with Negan in the early part of this half I didn't like letting Maggie fall. I just thought that was stupid. Like, why? I don't know. That's not a thing that I think Negan would do in that moment. Yeah, I know he thought Maggie was going to kill him eventually, but he knows she has a kid. Like, he's trying to make good with the group. That's not something he would do. I don't know. That just felt so out of character. I feel like they forced that just to add more conflict between the two of them when there already was a ton of conflict. They didn't need that at all. I'm just shit talking this now, which another thing I can say is I think there was a lot of just, I don't want to say forced writing, but like inorganic storytelling where it felt like they were really trying to get a point across in certain things. Like, for example, Commonwealth being a community that's supposed to be like bad at first. They were really trying like to do so many things that are really not subtle at all. Like, there's no subtle storytelling, I feel like, for a lot of these episodes. It's really in your face, a lot of exposition dumping, like, oh, this is exactly how it is, and this is how it's going to be. The only thing they didn't really exposition dump us with was that group in episode 6, which is the only thing I wanted some exposition dumping for, so that was weird. I don't know. I don't like 11A that much. There are some good things, though. Like, I definitely thought some of the Negan and Maggie stuff was good, enjoyable enough. Like I said, I didn't like some of the decisions they made at the beginning, but a lot of it later on was fine. I thought Gabriel was really badass this half season. He did a lot of cool things that I really enjoyed. Yeah, I don't know. A couple cool, well-directed action scenes with the Reapers. A couple, not like too many, but a couple. And I like how they changed to digital. They did that in 10C, actually, but I like the change to digital. I think things look a little more cleaner. Here's a lot of awesome shots, a lot of really good cinematography in these episodes. So I think that's the best thing I could say about 11A, for sure. 11B is going to go to A, though. So I will say something positive about this. This is definitely my favorite half season since I guess 9A, right? Like, it's been a while. 11B has made Commonwealth a lot more interesting. I think the community stuff going on there is a lot more subtle and nuanced than it was in 11A. They definitely made things a little bit more, you know, like, there's some people who are good and there are some people who are bad. I like that. I like how there's a lot of differences in the community, and I don't think everything going on there is the most interesting stuff, though. I do think the most interesting stuff has been the stuff going on outside of the walls ever since episode 13. I would say episode 13 to 16 is definitely the chunk of this season that's the best. But I think those couple episodes before there are still great as well. Episode 9 is phenomenal. The way they finished the Reaper's arc I thought was great. Like I said, I didn't like the Reaper's arc that much, but at least they finish it off really well with some really awesome action scenes, a really good, well choreographed fight scene in that hallway in that one sequence. And 10 and 11, I think the only like weaker episodes of the season. 12 was kind of cool, you know, just seeing Commonwealth being with all the different communities and going to Oceanside and Hilltop and Alexandria. All really cool stuff. But then, like I said, this conflict they get into with the Commonwealth soldiers, with Lance leading them, and the different the apartment complex community, and the fact that Leah was the one who stole their stuff, but then, you know, Commonwealth thought that this apartment complex group did it, and so that causes a big problem. And then there's this battle that goes on between them, and Lance just wants Maggie dead because he wants the power of all those other communities. And then we get some really awesome stuff, especially episode 14 and 16 for sure. They do great stuff with Negan. Having Herschel put the gun on Negan was a really awesome moment. Having Maggie finally saying she trusts Negan in episode 16 was phenomenal. Having Maggie finally fighting Leah, having that final confrontation, and then Daryl just shooting her was great. Really well done. And then it ending with Commonwealth taking over those other communities. Like, really awesome stuff in this half season, I gotta say. It's not S tier. It's not on the tier of these five mid seasons, but it's close. It's close. It's getting there. Now, I'm gonna quickly just rank these between the tiers now. It's gonna be very hard, but I'm gonna try. I think the worst out of these, I'm gonna say 7B. So, like, it's, you know, left to right, best to worst from left to right. So I'm gonna say, yeah, 7B is the worst tier. Then I would say 11, then 10. I would say 5 is the top. 5 is at the top because those first 3 episodes are fire. So that definitely keeps it up. Yeah, season 2 will be there. 1 is going to be a little bit lower here, I think. Probably this a little bit lower as well. I think 8A would be closer to the top. 3B probably down here. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Actually, no, I like 7A. Just because of that first episode, I think it's going to go above. No, but then you have Rick butting out Joe's throat. No, I don't know. No, I'll leave it there. It's a close one, though. I might actually put... No. Yeah, I'll put them higher than 3B. Yeah. Here, I'm going to say 2B would be closer to the bottom, I think. Then, yeah, that would be good. Then that. Then that right there. Then that. I think the top row is going to be the hardest. I think I would say 8B would be last, then 9B, then 5B, then 6B, then 4A. No, 6B is going to be first. Yeah, 6B's got to be first, right? I think that's how I would rank it right there. This is just a quick little thing. I didn't think about it much, but just off the top of my head, I think this is what I would give it. So, yeah, that sounds fair. If you guys want me to do the same thing, but with Fear the Walking Dead and World Beyond, I would like to. So I think when the whole series is done for, when season 11 finally finishes, I think I'm going to go through and rank every single Walking Dead franchise, Walking Dead universe season. So all 11 seasons, like as a whole, of The Walking Dead, with the 7 seasons of Fear, with the 2 seasons of World Beyond. That'd be 20 seasons total. That'd be crazy. I think I'll do that. I'll have to rewatch Fear the Walking Dead though, because I haven't seen the episodes that many times. I do know how I generally feel about the seasons. If I can remember, I think season 2 and 5 were my least favorite. Then would probably be season 1. And then I think 3, 4, and 6 were the best ones. I really liked the beginning of 4, but I didn't like the ending of 4. 6 was mostly good for the first half. I didn't like 6B that much, though. I liked 6A a lot. I think 6A was the best part of Fear. 6B was definitely not as good. 3 had a lot of great moments, but also a lot of shitty things too. So I don't know. It'd be hard to say. I'd have to rewatch it. And then World Beyond, I've only seen the first couple episodes and I didn't like it. So I don't think I'm gonna have much good to say about that. I will see you all in my next one. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Give me your ranking. Peace out.